This definitely isn't late. Your clock is wrong, I promise. I just got home, so I'm recording it now. I tried going out on Friday to record it, but it rained pretty much the whole day. I've done a lot of research on propaganda and the events that happened in the USSR so I could write this better with the extra time that I had. And it's been really interesting to learn about. A video that I watched about propaganda is called The Lego Movie, Communist Propaganda. It was really interesting. I would definitely recommend watching it. So Orwell wrote Animal Farm as a fairy tale, but when I read the book, I had no clue when it was from, so I had to search it up. Orwell wrote Animal Farm in 1945, when the USSR was very much around at that time, and they probably wouldn't have taken very kindly to the messages portrayed in the book. Being honest about it though, Animal Farm is definitely not a bedtime story if you're over the age of 7. It's a brutally honest, kind of depressing breakdown of what happens when revolutions get hijacked. And it's about communism. But it's also about power, truth, and how fast idealism can rot when the wrong people are in charge. At a glance, Animal Farm might just seem like a tale where pigs learn how to talk and become dictators. But every character and event mirrors the Russian Revolution and Stalin's rise to power. What makes Orwell's work so genius is that he doesn't just parody history. He was also able to capture the psychology of it. The slow collapse of truth, the rewriting of ideals, and the use of fear as control. Take the early revolution in the book, the animals kicking out Mr. Jones. This mirrors the Russian people overthrowing Tsar Nicholas II in 1917. The animals expected freedom, just like the Russian workers and peasants did, but almost instantly, the pigs start rewriting the rules. Squealer, who clearly represents the Soviet press and propaganda department, begins twisting language and statistics to justify every betrayal. For example, when the animals notice they're working more and eating less, Squealer insists production has increased 200%. That's a direct reference to how Stalin would exaggerate the success of the 5-year plans. In real life, the first 5-year plan, which were plans to rapidly industrialize and modernize their economies, claimed massive increases in grain production. But in reality, it led to one of the worst man-made famines in history, the Holodomor in Ukraine, where millions starved while Soviet reports bragged about feeding the nation. Something that really reinforces this is a quote from the end of the book. It comes from Mr. Pilkington's speech, saying, "He believed that he was right in saying that the lower animals on Animal Farm did more work and received less food than any animals in the country, truly driving home the fact that the animals were instead worse off than they were with Jones." The dogs Napoleon raises to enforce his power and control, they're the NKVD, Stalin's secret police, who compared to the Nazis around the same time, did not have very stylish uniforms. Anyways, they arrested and executed political rivals and even ordinary citizens in the Great Purge. Around 700,000 people were executed in just a few years. Orwell reflects this in the book's mass executions, where Napoleon kills off anyone who might oppose him. And just like in the USSR, the public is too terrified to resist. They're told it's for the good of the farm, or Jones might come back. And finally, there's Boxer, the symbol of loyal, unquestioning support. He works harder, follows the rules, and trusts the leadership, even as he's being exploited. In Soviet terms, Boxer is the average factory worker or Red Army soldier who gave everything to the cause, only to be discarded when he is no longer useful. His eventual betrayal, being sold to the glue factory, is Orwell's way of showing how expendable the working class became under Stalin's regime. Animal Farm isn't just a vague metaphor. Orwell knew the Soviet system well, and Animal Farm is his way of saying, here's what happens when power wins, and people lose track of the original dream. What struck me while reading Animal Farm was how easily the animals are manipulated. They trust the pigs because they don't have access to any other version of the truth. But in today's world, it's different. Generations like Gen Z and Gen Alpha are different. We didn't grow up in a world where one voice controls the narrative. We were raised during a time when major institutions have and continue to repeatedly fail us, and we've watched it unfold in real time, online, with videos and evidence. One of my favorite examples of Gen Z ignoring propaganda and being unserious are the current bombings in Iran. I've seen lots of memes online about World War III, and no one is being serious. We know that it's the people who fight the wars for politicians, but that if a president decides to launch 20 nukes at us, there isn't much the people can do. We're just simply being caught in the political crossfire. We saw how the US government told the world there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That lie led to a 20-year war, one that cost hundreds of thousands of lives, and no weapons of mass destruction were ever found. We saw news outlets repeatedly report this as fact and watched public opinion shaped by fear. That's Squealer, live on cable news. We learned early on that just because something is repeated doesn't make it true. Some of us lived through the 2008 financial crisis, where Wall Street bankers crashed the global economy, got bailed out, and walked away richer, while regular people lost their jobs and homes. The system didn't collapse because of one bad guy. It collapsed because powerful people lied, manipulated, and rewrote the rules for their benefit. And nobody stopped them. That's Animal Farm in real life. The pigs move into the farmhouse, and the rest of us are told to work harder. Even during COVID-19, we saw mixed messaging everywhere. Governments told people masks didn't help, and then reversed it days later, trying to cover up their mistake. Some countries covered up death tolls. Social media was flooded with both real and fake data, and many people stopped trusting anyone at all. That confusion feels exactly like the animals reading the commandments and not knowing when they changed. We haven't just been fed propaganda. We have watched it evolve and change in front of us. That's why blind trust doesn't work on us anymore. We grew up with fact-checking tools, anonymous whistleblowers, leaked documents, and viral clips exposing lies within hours. When someone tells us that this is the only truth, we always ask, what are they not telling us? In Animal Farm, Boxer says Napoleon is always right, but Gen Z says, pictures or it didn't happen. Here's the worst part. Orwell wrote Animal Farm in the 1940s, but you could rewrite it today. Replace the pigs with CEOs, or politicians, or content creators, and it still works. That's because the core of the story isn't about communism. It's about power and control, and especially the role that language and media play in that. Let's take propaganda. In the book, Squealer's job is to manipulate the truth, to spin Napoleon's failures into victories. Now look at today's world. In the US, propaganda doesn't always look like a giant poster of Stalin. It might look like a political ad that says nothing but makes you feel something. Or it might be a Facebook algorithm showing you what it thinks will make you angry enough to stay online. In 2003, for example, the US government justified invading Iraq by saying Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That was the public narrative, repeated in press briefings, echoed on the news, reinforced by fear. Years later, we learned those weapons didn't exist. That's modern propaganda. Not lies shouted by a dictator, but narratives crafted by the government, media, and PR firms. And then there's social media. The modern squealer isn't a pig, it's an algorithm. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram prioritize content that triggers you. It's not about truth, it's about engagement. That means outrage, repetition, and echo chambers. Here's the definition for echo chambers. It's incredibly easy to only see the version of reality that reinforces what you already believe, and almost impossible to know what has been left out. Just like in Animal Farm, where the animals start to forget what the commandments originally said, we can forget the truth when it's constantly shifting. If you've ever seen a public figure or influencer get exposed for doing something terrible, and then bounce back like nothing happened, that's propaganda. It's the normalization of contradiction. Orwell didn't predict TikTok, but he absolutely predicted this: a world where facts are flexible, truth is manufactured, and the people in charge are the ones who control the story. A quote I like to represent this is, "History is written by the victors." And in this world, the victors are the people with the most money and power. At a first glance, Animal Farm seems simple. Animals rebel, pigs take over, and things fall apart. But when you analyze it, you can see it's one of the most insightful political critiques ever written. Orwell isn't just warning us about Stalin. He's warning us about what happens when we stop asking questions, when we let fear, repetition, or comfort replace truth. So next time you hear a slogan that sounds a little too simple, or see someone rewriting the past to protect the present, remember to ask, is that the truth, or is that just what they want me to know? There's been people talking in their backyard next to me the entire time I've been recording this. It'd be kind of funny if you can hear them. Sorry for being late.